Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Um, Thank you, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the future of work after COVID 19. This is I think, probably the eight of seven. I don't remember now. Eight of seven of our series of webinars. Today, I think, thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Chan Chao Hao. I'm the COO of Just Login. We have been running these webinars for those who have been joining us for the last few webinars for over the last 2 months, and I think we're very happy to get all you attendees today to take this time off just to spend about an hour with us today. So today I have the privilege of having the founder and CEO of HR Tech SG, which is a very reputable HR tech site of Singapore, Siram Iyer. So he has been very helpful we're very willing to join us today. So I'll let Shiram maybe say a few words.
Hey, thanks, Shahal, for having me over. It's really a pleasure to be on the Just Login webinar. Um, my name is Sriram Iyer, as Chahal had said. I have over about 20 years of experience in the area of human resource management, essentially across workforce planning, talent acquisition, employer branding, and employee engagement. I'm the founder and CEO of HRTech.sg. It's a Singapore-based boutique HR tech market analyst firm. We are the co-creators of the Singapore HR Tech Market Map, about which we will discuss later today. About HRTech.sg, we host Singapore's largest and curated marketplace with over 90 solution providers. Our main focus is to help enterprises in Singapore identify the best fit HR tech solution for their needs. So, over to you, Chahab.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shiram. It's a privilege to have you today. Before we begin the session, I just want to do some housekeeping. First of all, this session is recorded and will be provided to everyone as a link. So if you've got colleagues who couldn't attend today or friends who would like to share this with, please wait for it. There's no need to do any video taking at your end. We'll send out the link and you can forward it to refer it back again. Okay, refer to the link for this recording. Second thing is that if you have any questions during the whole webinar, instead of taking down a notepad waiting for the end, you can type in Q&A in the box in one of the chats under your Zoom you see at the bottom. Then you can actually type in your Q&A there. At the end of the session, we will actually address those questions, okay, with Shiram as well. And lastly, after the seminar, please feel free, don't jump off the webinar immediately. Do give us some feedback. We'll be sending out a survey at the end of the webinar. So I hope this feedback will be very helpful for us to plan our future webinar series. Going forward, I think it's been very helpful. Generally, I think we'll be able to share some ideas and some thoughts for the audience. So we want to give give us some feedback so we can continuously look into more ideas and bring you more such webinars that you might find helpful in the future. All right, thank you. So now let's kind of begin. HR tech trends. Shiran, over to you. What do you see this do you think of this landscape of this HR10? I mean, everyone's so nervous about this COVID situation. You know, how has it affected HR tech, and maybe what do you think the landscape is like?
Jahab, I mean, we are in an unprecedented moment in probably human history, right? I mean, organizations have to adapt to economic uncertainty and also massive workforce-related changes. If you ask me, it's probably a defining moment for the HR teams also, and we need to have the HR teams adapt to whatever changes are happening quickly. And probably I would move to the next slide and explain what the HR teams are facing right now. This scenario that is on the slide was probably important even before COVID-19, but it's gained all the more importance now. Let me start off first, right? There's a clear expectation from the HR teams to act as a strategic business partner. Now, the leadership team, the workforce, everyone's looking up to the HR teams to guide them through this, through the current situation. They have to do the BAU, they have to support the organization in survival, and also look at the future. So there are three things that all the HR teams have to do now. There's a requirement to have an agile HR mindset, because let's take government guidelines, right? It keeps changing to match the situation on ground. So it is important that we need to have an agile HR mindset. Three, we're going to have a remote workforce. Earlier, we could gather around the water table and then discuss and get the pulse of the employees. Now, with remote employee, with a remote workforce, we need to have a data-driven approach to whatever we do. Data-driven decision making is going to be very, very important. Next, we were essentially moving to an experience economy, and what has happened is COVID-19 has just accelerated it. Right from doing virtual hiring to do virtual onboarding, we need to ensure that the experience of the candidate until the time he becomes an employee and continue throughout his employment, we need to ensure that the experience is provided both in a physical format and also virtually. And finally, let's be very clear on one thing. HR budgets are going to come down. We've been asked to do more with less, but the return on investment and the outcome has to be much more than earlier. All of this can be possible only when the HR teams adopt a digital HR mindset and adopt HR technology in every aspect of what they do. So what are we talking about when we say HR tech? Maybe the next slide can give you a good overview. Now, this is the HR tech market map that hrtech.sg worked to create in association with Adrian Tan. This is the second time we are doing this. What it has essentially done is to showcase to the Singapore enterprises that, hey, HR teams, we now have 160 plus service providers who are ready to support the Singapore HR teams across 8 categories: talent acquisition, HRMS, engagement, talent development, talent operations, compensation and benefits, analytics, and talent planning. 160 service providers from just a few tens of providers 3-4 years back. Now, the HR teams are spoiled with choices. While Singapore is clearly way ahead in terms of digital transformation when compared to its peers, we are still lagging behind in terms of HR tech adoption. And this slide is to emphasize that the HR teams just need to adopt a digital HR mindset. Solutions are out there. And Chaho, and you know, right, the last 2 months has been a hectic period for anyone who's in the HR tech industry. There's been a lot of traction in the Singapore marketplace and in the region with HR teams looking at all possible options to adopt technology in every sphere of life. So I think things are definitely changing for the positive in terms of HR tech adoption in Singapore.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you. I mean, over the last few months, in fact, we have been seeing all sorts of requests coming in. People are now actually reevaluating their businesses. They are now trying to decide, because one thing they realize is that the businesses are not going to be the same anymore, and so they're kind of, people who used to be like, even restaurants, right? Used to be like, my experience is the best in the restaurants. Now they suddenly have to go online to do all that. The whole manpower structure, the whole HR structure is changed dramatically. They need to let go of people quickly. They need to hire people quickly. They need to onboard people quickly. And the longer you take to do these things, the opportunity either comes and goes really quickly, or you just cannot survive as a business. So I think generally, yes, I definitely see that. But I got a question for you. I mean, sure, I mean, you talk about all this, right? What do you think? I mean, do you think that the HR, I see a lot of multinationals come in and we have this title called Chief People Officer, and then the HR is getting more important. Do you think the SMEs could do the same? Should they elevate the role of HR within the organization?
I think I've been talking to a lot of SMEs as part of my role. And the common thread that I'm seeing is the business owners are definitely talking about having dedicated HR teams essentially to help them guide through this. So while it might not be a CHRO or a CPO, but I'm definitely seeing this positive traction. Earlier, startups never used to have HR teams, but now they're starting to have HR teams which help them guide through these difficult times. I'm seeing that happening right now. To answer your question, John.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I
When
think
we,
that
when interestingly, right, when we worked on this map, there have been a lot of updates that we have been trying to do, right? If you take, for example, just the talent acquisition space, right? We have broken it down to multiple categories to help the HR teams identify the best solution providers for their needs. We've broken down talent acquisition to an applicant tracking system, through job boards and marketplace. If you want to just do job posting, if you want referrals, then probably sourcing through referrals, we have created a separate category. Technology hiring, non-PMET hiring, which is a very Singaporean terminology, video interview service providers, gamified assessments, then blockchain enabled background screening and checks, so on and so forth. Our endeavor is to ensure through this market map we're able to provide exactly the solution that these enterprises are looking for. Even within talent development, we came up with a competency management. We also created a new category called talent planning, because we see that as a slow trend that will evolve in the next 2-3 years. So the market map has evolved, but the key thing, Chaha, is we have talked about the expectations from HR teams. We have talked about the HR tech market map. Let's dive straight into our topic on the workplace trends and the HR tech trends that we are seeing. There are a lot of trends unfolding, but we're going to focus on 3 workforce trends. And Chaha, please help me in providing some of these technology trends associated with this that we are seeing. Right. The first one that I would say is 2nd June. I know a lot of my friends are eagerly looking forward to go back to office as part of the phase 1 of the post-circuit breaker. But yes, offices will not disappear, not so early. But what will change substantially is the size, the layout, and the nature of people interactions. And that's where, when I talk to a lot of companies and most of the SMEs and enterprises, I see that they are not still geared up for managing a workforce which is going to be both virtual and a physical or an on-site plus virtual workforce. See, remote workforce is going to be the norm, and we need to be really prepared for it. Some of the key problems, Shahab, and tell me what are the solutions that you are seeing in the marketplace, especially with Just Login. Like when it comes to remote work, people are talking about lack of face-to-face supervision. People are talking about social isolation, lack of access to information easily, because they could just knock someone's shoulder and get their details. Now it's no more. Distractions at home. So there are a lot of problems that the employees are facing and the employers are also facing. But we need to understand that this is the new normal that we are talking about. I would probably pause here. Let's open up the first poll of the day. Let's listen to what the participants have to say and see if it corroborates with what you and I have been discussing, Chaha. So we open up the poll to the participants. Maybe request you to share your responses.
Yeah, I mean, Shriram, it's while everyone's filling this up, I think Shriram, you brought out a few good points, right? I mean, the fact is that these things are not going to be changed. So, in my perspective, I mean, even for us as a company, Just Login, I mean, we always had a remote workforce, right? We had a team in Philippines, in Malaysia, in parts of China. So the thing is that, but we always kind of have a core team that is working out in Singapore. But what we realized after this episode is that, you know what, even though everyone's working from home, we're still as productive. All right. The thing is, interestingly, we didn't really miss a beat. And suddenly the management team got this thinking, it's like, why do we need such a big office space for? We have an office space of full meeting rooms and full setup and desk and everything. And suddenly all this real estate looks so wasted, right? And I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking easily we can work with a much smaller office space. Sure, we can have a nice office space just to kind of keep up the corporate image to get people to get come together. But I would say that maybe 50% of our time can be done remotely and 50% of the time in the office we take turns. We don't need such a big office space. So the way I see it is that a few things is going to happen. One of it is that I think this whole COVID work from home situation, a lot of companies start relooking at their physical needs, right? Do you really need an office? Think about it. Do you really need such a big office? Do you need 2,000 square feet? Do you live with 500 square feet, right? For an office, just to get everybody together for meetings on meetings day, or just discussion days, and the rest of the thing just work from home. Or can the thing is that probably a lot of managers will not be comfortable, and how do you get them to be more comfortable with not seeing employees? I think this will be some of the challenge people have to deal with. And last of it is that like the same problem you mentioned is that a lot of companies not geared up for this remote working setup. They don't have video conferencing set up before. They've never done this before, so they're struggling with all the tech, right? And the worst is that a lot of information is stuck in paper. They haven't digitized it. So I think the next wave of tech will probably everyone will start looking at is how do I digitize all the paper that I have, right? How do I put it on the cloud? How do I make it more accessible anytime, anywhere? So the next time a pandemic arrives again, um, we will probably be ready this time. Maybe such a climate. It happened again once. You know what? It could happen again. So I think this is a very interesting phenomenon, and it caused everybody to start thinking. So, but let's take a look at the poll results.
Okay.
There you go. I think it says for itself. 81% of you mentioned that this COVID-19 accelerated adoption of HR tech in the workplace. So I think the reality is that it speaks for itself. What do you think, Shiram? What do you think of the results?
I mean, it corroborates with what we are facing on ground in the last 2 months in terms of queries and inquiries from prospective clients. Let me talk about it, right? I mean, the government guideline says we need to measure temperatures of employees twice a day and need to keep track record of it. So there are technologies today which talk about biometric devices, which you're going to explain. There are requests for assessments and virtual hiring video interviews that's happening. Companies are asking for how do we communicate with employees seamlessly and not through WhatsApp and other some unsecured channels. Is there a way? So we are seeing a lot of such trends. Definitely, the classroom training getting replaced, and HR bots, for example. On earlier, you could go to the HR manager who's sitting in the same or next adjacent cubicle and ask him, hey, how much is my balance leave? But today you can have the bots respond to it. So a lot of things that are happening, and this basically corroborates it.
Yeah, I think just to give some samples of what we think as well, and just again, I mean, just a sample of technology. There's a lot of things going on. Maybe some slides next. I mean, you mentioned a few technology trends that's very interesting, like things like biometrics, things like the thermal scanning, things like blockchain contracts. You know what? These are going to happen much sooner. I think this time it will accelerate the development of this, right? So over the last month or so, suddenly we have a lot of requests from customers coming into us. They're saying, hey, when we're going to reopen offices, were you able to, for those customers of ours who's on this chat, this webinar, will be familiar that we actually have a kiosk system in the past that was able to do a face capture and do real-time clock in. But suddenly everyone's asking us, could you also clock in real life temperature? this got us thinking. So we have actually gone out to the market and found that, you know what, there is such a solution out there and it's readily available. And we are going to incorporate this in part of our solution. So coming on in a couple of weeks' time, we hope to get this our solution on the market quickly to address this COVID situation. Is that you'll be able to not only just take a temperature, take the face, we are able to take temperature as well, and even with a face mask on. So this market trend has actually driven us to look deeper into a tighter integration with such innovative hardware like biometrics hardware and things like that, which is I think this is a new development, and I think companies probably need to start looking into such solutions going down the road, because it's going to be a new norm, as what the government says, or in fact the whole world says. The other development that I think is going to be very, very interesting is 5G, right? I mean, if you all have aware that 5G is going to be rolled out in the next couple of years, and it's going to be, I mean, given that this new development is going to be X times faster than our current 4G. Now, the key thing about 5G, for those of you who just you just think about it, just faster internet on my phone, better for games, better for movies. You know what? It doesn't stop there. I think the main thing here is that 5G is going to change work. The main thing about 5G is that the latency, the point where you click on a button on your mobile phone and the time when the server receives the signal is been shortened to the point that it's almost immediate. So you can imagine the future of work will change dramatically when people start developing apps around or use cases around this 5G technology, is that you will be able to, maybe doctors or surgeon will be able to use a robot on the other end and to do real-time surgery. Okay, I mean, he could probably do real-time surgery without physically being there. They have a surgeon robot doing the surgery, or it could be a very delicate machine that you need to operate with very fine, small movements that you used to do with your hands, or you can remote control a car or vehicle, or even do put more sensors out in space so you can detect more signals and more data sets. This will change the work, because now you don't need to have 5 foremans for 5 construction sites. You could probably have 1 foreman to control 5 machineries across the 5 different sites at the same time through 5G and all this AI development. So I think this will definitely accelerate all this remote workforce situation, all this new floor plan planning, because now you probably need less people with less time to do more things across a broader geographical area. It will just change the landscape dramatically. I definitely see this coming. So I mean, when I speak to some of the telcos out there in the market, they're telling me this. They are telling me that the use cases is just immense when you have that ability to do real time. You don't have this staggered, even like Zoom now, look at this stagnation. I mean, that's currently my feel, and I think this technology will change a lot of things, even change how HR, how you hire people, what kind of people you need to hire, will definitely change a lot of things. So yeah, so let's look at the next trend, Siram.
Yeah, thank you, Chaha. So on the device that you are getting in, the safe entry with facial recognition, contactless temperature screening, that's, I think, is definitely a game changer, because I know there is a manpower in office who would probably go walk across the from one cubicle to another cubicle, measuring the temperature, noting it down. All of that bandwidth can be freed up, and they can focus on lot more productive things. So that's definitely something which the market is looking forward to. The second workplace trend, essentially what we have seen is in the HR tech journey of every enterprise, you always start with payroll operations, and then they start adopting some technology in the hiring space, which could be video interviews, it could be assessments, or any of those applicant tracking systems. The next, they progress to employee performance management and employee engagement. When they have a lot more employees, I'm very surprised. There are a lot of companies in Singapore which still do paper-based performance management. But I'm sure one trend that we are increasingly seeing is companies asking us, in this scenario, how are we going to manage, measure the productivity of an employee when he's not even in office. I mean, that's a significant trend. And mm, I've been telling all our clients to start looking at it right upfront. Maybe employee performance management, automation is not on your agenda right now, but start looking at it, because that's going to be the key factor post COVID-19 to help retain a mobile remote workforce. See, today the scenario is going to be the workforce might be working from anywhere in the world and supporting your organization. How do you have employee pulse surveys, feedback, 360-degree, all of it in a software that can make it happen? So I want to hear your thoughts on this, Chaho.
Yeah, so I think this would be very interesting. But before we do that, maybe let's get on to the poll, and then I'll give my some intake. Yeah. So do you use any analytics tool to track employees' productivity? So as we open out the audience, you see a prompt. Feel free to go ahead and answer that. So I mean, my take on this is that I think few things, right? First of all, in the past, people with olden HR practices, is a lot of it has to do with the fact that there was very limited ways which employees can be measured in the past, right? In the past, before all these digital tools came out, the internet came out, there were very limited ways, right? The only way people measure productivity was how many hours you spend in a factory or how many hours you spend in an office. It wasn't. So if you think about it, how many hours you spend in an office, is it directly correlated? In the past, it probably was correlated to output, right? You spend 3 hours building three widgets, right? But nowadays it's no longer the same, right? You can spend 5 years building Grab, or you can spend 5 years building a provision shop, right? So the output is different. So now the definition of productivity is it's different. So I will think that the problem with measuring productivity in the past, it's no longer relevant in today's world, right? And there's also another trend. The other trend is that generally there's this thing called gig economy. It's all coming up. People are maybe during lunchtime they do a Grab drive, or maybe after work on the way back they'll probably do a few Grab deliveries. So it's no longer, or it could be the fact that on the weekends they will do some spare work, or you can hire freelancers to do a certain jobs that your team doesn't have skill sets to do. So these things will keep evolving, and it comes to a point where you have to rethink your workforce and how you track the employees. So I'm going to share a little bit more of this tech, but before that, let's take a look at the results of this trend. So there you go. I think a lot of it don't. No, I think the question here to everyone is that most people don't track the employees' productivity, or they don't know what's out there. I think. Do you think? I mean, Sharon, what do you think of the results?
It again matches with what we are seeing, right? Essentially, this is definitely going to be the next wave. When we did the market map, if you see the number of players in the performance management space in Singapore or in the analytics space, it's just 10 out of 160 plus. So the number of service providers in a category is an indicator of how mature the market is. So essentially, this is a trend that will definitely come up very soon. The market is going to open up for it. And I think the results again validate that.
So I think everyone in the audience will agree, right? I mean, other than you think about it, most business costs, HR, it's significant, if not the top most expensive element in your P&L. And yet the funny thing is, no one measures the productivity of it, right? No one has the tools to measure the productivity of it. And yeah, you're right. Don't know how to track it. So let me give a sense. I mean, the challenge is how do you track that, right? So I think the general rule sometimes to be, maybe you can go on to the next slide, is that first of all, you probably a lot of it there's no tangible way to track it. And there's no continuous way to give feedback to companies. So we are seeing things like performance management tools coming up to look into that problem. Synergita, which happens to be our partner, they have a tool which does continuous feedback, right? So not only have they put performance management, it used to be like a once a year exercise where they do performance management once a year. Right now, it's come to a point where you can give performance appraisals. Like how Facebook does all the likes and all the don't likes things. You can actually apply that in on the mobile app. You can actually do that. You can give praises or likes to employees' work and stuff like that to give the kind of real-time feedback. So there are ways to digitize this traditional performance appraisal system. But I think the next trend, the next thing we want to show you is, I mean, moving towards the gig economy, when everyone's working from home, uh, it will probably needs to translate the responsibility down to the employees, right? In the past, the employees say, "Don't track me. I just appear at work. In the meantime, I'll go for my 200 toilet breaks. As long as within that space." But I think nowadays it's like I want to be paid for the work I'm done, and I want to give the flexibility to do it. And there are tools out there. Like we came across a tool that we use internally as well, Hubstuff, that's able to track based on the hours that you work. So it's not just about clocking in, but it's also about how many hours you work on the computer. And it will take screenshots of it. It will kind of measure your productivity, and based on that, you can submit it as a timesheet to your bosses or management to then pay off the amount of work that you have delivered. All right. And if you can match this against the value of your time or your effort, then you got a more direct correlation between your output and your tracking. So, I mean, this could be a first start. It's still evolving, this tracking tools in the market, but I think this is a first start because we're using this to track. We're seeing developments in this space to track freelancers, how much work they spent on. So people tend to go to freelancers and say, I don't care how much time you spend on. I just want to do a lump sum project costing. But the thing is that it's not a very accurate measure. Employees tend to abuse the lump sum. They mean, give me 10 hours. You give me, this is your output. I'm just gonna pay you a salary based on this output. But nowadays it's like employees will say, look, what you're telling me, you keep making changes. You could take twice the amount. I want to be paid the amount, right? So that will match your employees' output to what you pay them, and that will be able to bring satisfaction on both ends. There'll be less conflict, right? Employee won't say I'm overpaying you, and employee will say that, you know what, you pay me fair. And after a while, you'll notice that you might be able to reduce your workforce to a more productive workforce than someone who's maybe dragging the team down, right? So I think the point is that you got to think about look at how players like Grab or this new age economies, how they measure productivity. They have actually made it to be very granular. How many miles you drive, how many packages you deliver, and then translated to how much I'll pay you. So it's worth considering how do you move the workforce towards more gig economy kind of payment salary method. No longer is based on number of hours, number of time, number of months. So I think that the trend in this space and there'll be more development in this space. It's a very exciting space to look at.
Friends in the staffing space are also saying the same thing, Chow, that they're getting a lot of requests today for contract workers rather than perm roles, because the entire market wants to move to a more of a contracting outcome-based approach rather than an effort-based approach. I think that's a significant trend that you really brought out well.
I can't disagree more. I can't agree more, right? And this is definitely the way that I think employers want to pay it that way. It's just in the past they have no way to measure it, but now there's so many tools out there. So I think this is interesting. Maybe we can look at the next trend and maybe.
Sure.
Sure.
And of the many trends that we are seeing, the third trend is definitely, I've seen a lot of, I've been talking to a lot of clients and my friends. The common complaint is, hey, I just have lost track of time. Earlier, I just lost track of the date. Now I just lose track of the day, and someone has to remind me that today is a Hari Raya public holiday. I mean, so that's how it is actually evolving into. People are actually being more proactive but stretched out. That's because what we are seeing is there's a blurring gap between the personal life and work life. Now, sometimes one encroaches into the other encroaches into this. So the issue that we really want to highlight, Chaha, is that this is definitely something that all the HR teams need to be wary of and start working on it. Now, one of the key things that we have been telling our clients is never what is applicable for one organization cannot be replicated for the other. You will have to see what is relevant for your organization, what is the culture in your organization, and create essentially any initiatives, activities, processes, systems, and even the HR tech product to suit your internal culture and company structure. So even for this, right? I mean, some of these things that I really would like to tell the managers and the HR teams is one, in a remote workforce kind of structure, it's great to have established structured check-ins so that people know, okay, 9:30, this is going to happen, let me be ready, right? And they can at least be planning around it. So we need to have structured check-ins by the managers with their employees. Second, the technology communication options cannot be just restricted to email and WhatsApp. There are a lot of new age technologies that we are seeing in Just Login has some features. There's Zippy. These are features which can help you collaborate, provide assigned tasks, track employee tasks, and even send across messages to them without employees being able to screenshot the messages and some of those secure channels. Third, there needs to be, you need to bring in some kind of remote social interactions, but these need to be very, very customized for the employees. This cannot be the same one for one thing, one size fits all approach cannot work here. So you need to get structured social interactions. And finally, which will lead into what you're going to talk about is encouragement and social support. I think that's going to be really critical. And I know of situations where employees went on business travel and they are not able to come back because they are stuck due to lockdowns in respective countries. They've been away from their families, away from the offices for 2 months and remotely working. There is a need for employee encouragement, social support. So this is a trend, and just signing up for an online initiative, just doing 1 week initiative per week is not going to be the answer. It needs to be a structured process around it. Over to you, Chaho.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, now that you're kind of working from home, and I think Shiram, you see this chart, it shows that generally a lot of employees tend to enjoy this process, right? Working from home. I mean, they think that this is a very good uh, initiative, right? They enjoy the flexible schedule, ability to attend to things at home that used to be a challenge. They save a lot of time in commuting. And I was just doing a rough calculation the other day. On average, if 1 week you save to and fro, you save maybe 2 hours of travel a day. In 1 week, you think about it, that's almost 10 hours. In a month, that's about 40, on a month, it's about 40 hours. 40 hours, and that's 5 full days of work time, if you think about it. So just by traveling to and fro work, you already save 5 full days of time, right? So that's quite a lot of productivity gain that actually can benefit from this remote working setup. But the only challenge here is that how do you deal with the challenge when things are all blurred up, right? I generally think that maybe there's some trend to look at. But before we do that, I think I would just like to get another poll going, which is, have your organization initiated any online initiatives to support employee health and wellness? So just to share with everybody some ideas. So for us internally in Just Login, we actually do our HR do spend quite a bit of effort doing a lot of soft um, engagement, right? Like here, they will actually manage these online games, which we just finished one a couple of minutes ago. Was an online game which allows us to do guesswork. Send out a quiz for everybody, the different teams, and see how fast they respond. We'll break down to some virtual teams and let teams collaborate on Zoom, and then they come and work on those questions. Kind of like small bonding sessions. We get all these. We do this Zoom get-togethers on Fridays, just to bring everyone together, just to make sure everyone's alive and well, sharing their concerns, so you don't feel very disconnected with employees. And I think our previous webinar last week, actually, our HR actually shared quite a bit of such insights, and I think it's brought us closer, even though we're not physically together. Um, this is definitely, but in terms of tech development, I think I got a few interesting things to share, but maybe let's take a look at the results.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, 40% yes and 60% no. I I think that's pretty mixed. Shiram, what do you think? What's your take on this?
Yeah, so this is quite an interesting result, 40-60. So which means companies have started, but not everyone. Maybe a lot of companies are thinking that maybe we might go back to office and things could be back to the old normal. But the graph that you showed was really good, Chah. Clearly shows, and there have been other work from home surveys that have happened in Singapore. All of them point to the fact that employees really prefer to work from home. So I think HR teams have to start working on creating some of these online health and wellness initiatives.
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to health and wellness initiative, I think that's where HR tech can probably help in a little bit. First of all, this thing about demarcation between when you start work and when you end work, right? I think generally it's a lot of trust issue when you start work, when you end work. But if you're working if you tell a team that, since everyone's working from home, we'll do a flexi work, so that as long as you clock in the hours, or as long as you're able to do the project, or you need to have in between breaks, you can allow you to clock out, so that it's a bit more accountable of their time. Employees will have this too. I mean, for us, it's just log in. What we do is that even though everyone's working from home, we got everybody to clock in when they first start work, and when they clock out when they finish the day, so that everyone kind of know that, this guy's done by 5 or 6. He's tired, or he's finished for the day. So and HR will be able to see these kind of trends, because HR can observe if someone's clocking in at 11 p.m., because there's a tendency for people to overwork when they're working from home as well, right? And the reverse is also true, but there's also a tendency that, if everyone is working from home at 11 p.m. and clocking out, if the team is clocking out, that means they're actually working a lot longer than they should. So there's a very high chance of burnt out, right? So these are cause for concern, and then HR can start investigating, why are you working so much at home? Um, I think because work becomes too convenient, these people are work addicts. So it's possible the reverse could happen. The reverse can people overwork when they are working from home. So these are signs that help you to look at, having a proper system set up, so they can kind of like punch in virtually in when they're starting work, and punch out virtually when they are off work. So that way gives a proper mindset to demarcate when you start and when you close the day. The other thing to look at here is, recently I came across a very interesting development in tech world, is that, we all have these smartwatches right now, right? You know what they're doing? Some of them are constantly keeping track of not just your time or notification, but it's keeping track of your heart rate. Everyone's probably not aware. It's like, yeah, fine, heart rate, it's all good. But interesting, some companies out there are looking at these heart rate variations that you get all through the day, and detect the stress level of employees. So we see this as a very interesting development, right? In the future world of work, it could come to a point where everyone's probably on a smartwatch, detecting all this heart rate, and you can incentivize your employee to sync this information into maybe a mobile app, and use this information the HR can use this information to determine, for example, maybe a department, everyone who's working under this management is very stressed, right? Or maybe everyone who's this department is extremely stressed during this period of time. They can detect things like stress level. They can detect things like, maybe person's overworked, or even for laborers, maybe this group of people are overworked, that their body readings are very weak, right? They're very prone to illness. So when these things start happening, not only can a company have used this data for a general welfare benefit, it will elevate the awareness of how you allocate workload balancing and stuff like that. So I think that's a very interesting development. I'm starting to see this as a trend because now everyone seems to have a smart watch nowadays, and all this information is being captured. One day, this information will be transferred into an HR tech, and from there, the HR can actually use this information to evaluate and do even things like performance management, or do HR assessment. So I think this is definitely a very interesting tech development, and it's probably going to happen in a couple of years as well. I mean, with all this 5G development, all these new smartwatches and all these things, it will be a very interesting time.
And some of these technologies are definitely not expensive too. I know there's a service provider who's launched a freemium version where the basic data analytics is actually free. So if it's clearly moving towards a data-driven environment. I think it's all available at the click of a button.
Yeah. So this is all very interesting development. I mean, today I think for us we only have time to share three major trends, but I hope I was able to give everybody some insights of what's happening in the tech world, HR tech world. Things to look at. Um, something. So let's open up to Q&A. Please post your answers Q&A. We try to get through them.
So, interesting questions, 11 odd questions. I think let's start with the first one. How do you convince your leadership to provide additional budgets for your HR tech solutions, especially in current COVID scenario? My quick answer to Shruti is I don't think we are going to get additional budgets from our leadership. That's pretty clear. But most of these are actually not very costly. They are cost-effective HR tech solutions. It's all about presenting to the leadership. So the key aspect that we have been telling clients is the business case is the most important aspect, and that is where HR teams really lack. You need to bring in dollars and cents into the entire business case and present it to the management. And I'm sure they are going to say, okay. If they look at the cost versus benefits, I think we have never seen any leadership saying no to it. You just have to work on that.
I definitely agree. I mean, Shiran, you brought up a very good point. Remember, you look up at the map. We showed out all the tech players. And everyone who understands a bit of economics will know that when you have so many tech players, competition is keen. And when competition keens, prices will be reasonable or low, right? In this kind of scenario, so where we're seeing in the HR tech development, because of this huge competitive landscape, tech prices are not expensive. And today, a lot of tech solutions are actually based on a subscription model. So when you do on a subscription model, it means you pay based on number of employees or based on number of some a variable number, right? And it comes to a point where you actually able to measure ROI quite quickly, because if I'm able to reduce maybe absenteeism by, I don't know, 25%, right? Imagine that it means you get 25% more working hours for your employees. Or if you're going to keep more satisfaction with employees, typically you reduce your turnover, staff turnover, by a certain percentage. And by doing that, what happens is that you spend less time retraining people. You spend more time making them productive. So I think these will be like Shiram, as you correctly pointed out, this will be something that HR has to go back to management and present the use cases like this. Yeah, that will definitely, with all the grants going on, I don't see this being a very difficult ask. Okay, next question.
The second question is probably right up your alley because you were talking about it earlier. What is the future of co-sharing workplaces when you were talking about office space going to reduce? So I think this is closely related to that from Abhi.
Um, I mean, my sense is that the future of co-working spaces would definitely increase. I mean, one of the key thing here to note is that there's a reason why WeWork is so popular, even though they kind of semi-file for bankruptcy. But reason being is that sometimes you want to get away from home, right? You don't want to work at home all the time. But I don't really want to go to office because everyone's there and it's very noisy. So I want to go to somewhere cool. Or I have a very distributed workforce all over the world, and I want to be accessing the world's talents, not just Singapore's talents. I want to address the world's talent. I want to have an engineer from Philippines. I want to have a UX designer from US. You can. Why not? You don't need them to look into Singapore. You can tap into talents that you previously were not able to tap before if you're able to look at all this. So co-working spaces will get more popular because you got all these gig economies who's probably needs just a workplace. So I will say that the new future, yes, it will allow your businesses to adapt as well because everything becomes a variable cost. If today I got 10 employees, I'll just hire 10 desks. But tomorrow I got 20 employees, I'll bring 20 desks. But if there's a COVID situation, I can bring it down to 5 overnight. This is probably with the agility that you talked about in the first slide, Sriram.
So they are going to be there, but just that the sizes can be fluctuating based on the demand.
Yeah, I agree.
How would performance management change in the new normal? That's to you, Synergy, that question.
I think performance management will probably there'll be more technology development in that space. There'll be more real-time performance. I mean, right now, the last thing you want to do is wait for your boss to, after like 3 months, to tell you, you know what, your performance is bad. If you have told me that my performance is bad in the first week, I could make some changes. I could have done something. I could have done anything. But if the point is to give regular performance interview, and it could be small things, right? So that to make small changes, like I mean, there's a book called Atomic Habits. Making small changes over time will exploit into something that huge output at the end. So I would say performance management. That's why you give real-time feedback to Grab drivers. After you finish a Grab, I'll give them a 5-star or 4-star or 3-star. That's what the real time it will definitely move into the HR space, into employees. The idea is to shorten the time from the task being delivered to the performance being given. So this needs to happen in order for you to react quickly and to improve everyone's performance. Okay, next question. What kind of new skill set will HR professionals require to attain the support business seamlessly? I think Sriram, this is more up your alley.
So I'd start off with my favorite point on saying you need to adopt a digital HR mindset. So it's no more a question of yes or no. We need to adopt it. The question is when. So the answer is right now. We need to have a digital HR mindset. So which means HR teams need to start talking about technology, knowing about technology. That's going to be essential. Second, if you talk about analytics, that's something which is going to really in Singapore, the need is already being felt. For example, you can't straight away get into analytics without a foundation in statistics. So you probably have to start with statistics somewhere and then head to analytics. So these are some aspects that from a skill set perspective, I think we need to go back to our ITs and polys and start talking about a HR technology and analytics right from there rather than talking about it at the business school later in stage. So it needs to start much earlier. And for mid-career professionals like us, we have no choice. We need to start it right now.
I definitely agree. For example, recently we just signed a couple. For those of you who might know, is that we actually have an agreement with the ITE in Singapore, and they are teaching just log in at the IT level. So they'll be introducing our course in a couple of months. In July, they're going to launch this new course, which ITE students will actually be taught skills on how to operate a HRMS system. And in this case, it's just log in. We're providing the curriculum, and so a lot of the workforce coming in will be trained with this, knowing how to use this system. So I think the existing HR landscapes, you probably find a point whereby operating a system will probably be not as value adding. I mean, if you're still doing just payroll, doing employee assessments, or doing pretty much admin work, you're not value adding very much, because this could be done by systems. I mean, our system will calculate the CPF for you automatically once a month. It take you maybe 5 minutes to generate payroll. What used to take maybe 2 hours. Or calculate overtime for you. These systems can be done, will do this all for you. Why your value add come in, like what Shiran's correctly point out, is how do you allocate the right resource to the right team and get the right talents to do the right thing. I think that is probably the value add, where the HR needs all these data to make the right decisions. And that's probably how you elevate the game for the HR world. Okay, so let's talk to...
The next question is on, would technology be able to replace the human touch, emotional connect of face-to-face working? Definitely not. But the next question is, how do you see workforce adapting to the stress and side effects, given that the new normal is skewed towards remote workforce? Well, we did discuss about this when we talked about online wealth and healthness initiatives, Chahok. So I think that kind of answers this question. The next is on training and development. How do you think organizations will cope with a gig or temporary workforce and remote working? I think you did talk about it in your answer on gig remote working. But on training and development, yes, it's not going to be classroom training. It's moving to bite-sized learning, peer-to-peer learning, mobile-based learning. All of it is coming into picture. So you're right in that way that the nature of L&D is changing. Are there mobile apps that combine learning management system and performance KPIs? I would let you answer that from a just login perspective.
We are not in learning management per se, but I mean, there are definitely mobile apps that will be able to do that. I mean, our partner Synergita does that. So do feel free to check out. I mean, from Shriram's a big chart on all the players, I think you can explore if there are. I mean, that's probably a process that you have to go through.
That's right. John, do refer to the market map that we had shared earlier, and probably your answers could get answered. Work from home arrangements may be challenging for employees who may not have home environments that are not conducive. How can we help them?
I mean, my take is this. My take is, how can you help them? They're basically only have a handful of factors that make sure that they're conducive, right? I mean, maybe a right desk, a right chair, a right computer. Probably these are the best practices that you can kind of share with them. Of course, if it's a space issue, then maybe in the future, in this COVID situation, a co-working space could be used, something that you can open up so that it's close to their home, or maybe this is something that I've looked at case by case basis. But I generally think that as long as the company is supportive, I think HR can easily find a solution for it. Even just investing in them, making sure that they have the right monitors, the right equipment. I think that's the least any company should do to encourage this.
Sure. The next question is from Joey. Interesting poll on the outcome of employee health and wellness program. What could be the challenges for adoption of implementing HR tech in this area? Would it be because the investment or initial outlay may take a long time to recoup, as results are not immediate? I probably will take that. Chaha, quick answer would be, since we are running short of time, is maybe the costs are not as prohibitive as you think, Joey. We are talking about subscription-based, employee headcount-based approach, which definitely are not costly. So, for example, you will be able to, when you do your math on the outcome and benefits versus the investment, you will see that any investment in HR tech is definitely going to pay off, maybe not always in the short term. And that's what you have to convince your management. Okay, will workplaces of the future rely on data analytics that will become increasingly invasive to employees? Maybe you can combine a couple of them. With all these data tracked and monitored, what about privacy and surveillance issues that might arise?
Yep. My take to that is quite simple. I mean, if you're gonna look at it as privacy concerns, yes, there will be some privacy concerns, but I think the point is that over time, people will get comfortable. I mean, with such data because it's about a give and take. If you don't, if you want your freedom, unfortunately, if you want to use Google, you have to give Google, you have to give Google your information. Otherwise, Google cannot deliver the kind of personalized answers to you, right? Imagine if you're staying in Singapore and you don't tell Google that you're staying in Singapore, it will send you maybe the nearest grocery store is somewhere in India. That's not helpful to you at all. So I think it comes to a point where it's a matter of give and take. If the and it trust with the organization that takes the use the data. I think that's the main thing here.
Sure.
You have to look at the company that uses it more than anything else. It's just like how you trust the banks.
That's right. And finally, we have a question from Darren. And I think we talked about it, Chaha. We are seeing trends, initial trends could be, but companies are definitely looking at a lot of gig-based approach, freelancer approach. So that's why we have Upwork.com and Freelancer.com really growing in size. In Singapore too, we are seeing a lot of contractual outcome-based approach rather than fixed headcount perm roles getting hired. These are initial days, Darren, but what we sense is this is going to be the key trend for the future in Singapore.
I definitely agree. I think even for our organization, though it's small, one thing we realized is that nothing is constant, right? The business, if you're in business, you're running a business, if you're operating a business, you will realize one thing is that your business does not stay the same forever. Every few months there'll be a new challenge, the new employee come in, right skill sets, wrong person, right skill sets, wrong timing, all this will keep happening. So, but the thing is that if you're fixed to a certain kind of, you need to hire somebody who can fit everything, it's quite hard to do. So I would say that yes, it will happen and it's going to happen much faster. So I would expect companies to seriously evaluate designing organization to accommodate such changes much faster.
Thank you, Chahao. It was a great discussion, and I think some wonderful insights from you and from the panelists, from the participants. Thank you very much. And
So yeah, so thank you everyone. So I think that's all the questions we have. So uh, do realize that when we end this, there will be a survey sent out, as I mentioned in the start of the webinar. Please leave some feedback for us, and I hope you could have a hope you have a good time today, and I hope you shared some insights that you could go back and think about. Thank you, Shiram, for joining me in this webinar, and I wish everyone stay safe and good luck.
thank you very much, Chahao. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.